All right, welcome everybody. My name is JD Scroggin. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Dunn School. We are so excited to unveil the expansion to our entrepreneurship curriculum, the Robert W. Jurgensen Entrepreneurship Program. On hand, we have tonight some administrators and instructors who are going to be able to tell you everything you need to know about the expansion to the program, how your kids can get involved, and what opportunities are going to be available to them in the upcoming year and in the years ahead. I just want to introduce our panel and who you're going to be hearing from tonight. We will start with our head of school, Cal Balovan, is here joining us, as our CFO, Chad Stacy, who's one of the instructors in the program, as well as Alex Westcott, history teacher and also an entrepreneurship instructor. Amanda Milholland in our admissions office is also our director of summer programs. She will be on as well to talk a little bit about the opportunities we'll have in the summer. But without further ado, I'm going to throw it to Cal. Cal, please, let's have your opening remarks on entrepreneurship education.
Well, I appreciate all of you making the time to be together to have this conversation around entrepreneurship. I'm really excited about the program and laying the groundwork, laying the framework in this conversation about the groundwork that we've laid for the expansion of the program. So I want to start with the idea that a lot of us adults on the call were privy to while we were growing up, which was the 440. Rachel Carlson talks about it in the latest issue Independent School Magazine. I don't put this magazine up only because of Rachel Carlson's quote, but you might want to look at page 24. Dunn gets a little profile in. But Rachel talks about the idea that the 440, where you used to go to college for 4 years and go to a career for 40 years, that mythology has been broken. We no longer live in that reality. It's now something that it's a distant reality if it ever was. What we live in, she says, is a 4-4-4-4-4 reality, which is every 4 years, you need a new skill. You need to learn how to remarket yourself. You need to learn something in order to be viable. You're constantly shifting in your career or in careers or between careers. And so the schools that said, hey, you know what, we're college preparatory and only that, those schools really don't, they're really doing a disservice because they're feeding into the old model. But schools that say they're life preparatory, in which college plays a role, like Dunn always has, they seem to be posited in a way to be more successful. So what does entrepreneurship play a role in all this? Well, our school started off in the spirit of entrepreneurship. You have the founder, Tony Dunn, who's a teacher at Laguna Blanca, who taught at Midland School, who forms a corporation to start something, entrepreneurial spirit. He wanted to start a school called Dunn School. He gets invited by families to start a school at this Valley Farm School in Los Olivos. And they started as the Valley Farm School and they rebranded to the Dunn School. And it was an entrepreneurial initiative from the very beginning. We know it because Tony Dunn also put together the motto for the school, put together a seal for the school that illustrates the idea behind what the school's DNA is really about, which is this entrepreneurial spirit. The motto is Netens aut profici, right? Which means attempt not, but achieve. Go out there and get it done. And that idea of not waiting for something to try go out there and reach for it is something that's integrated in our curriculum from the very beginning. And then this entrepreneurial spirit also manifests itself in the way the symbol of the school. The symbol of the school comes from the Dunn crest, which is you have snakes on it. Some snakes are looking in one direction, and others another direction. If you really look at it, you're realizing that there's one snake that's wrapping itself around the others and trying to get everyone to go in the one direction with the rest of the group. And that idea of the snake of justice, getting everyone together and we're going to get this, we're going to go do this. That spirit was very Dunn. And that spirit was infused throughout the early days of the school. It attracted a young educator, it attracted young educators and those that really wanted to give their life's work for education, phenomenal teachers with an entrepreneurial spirit. Along the way, there was a business manager who applied for a role to be the CFO, but also to teach classes here because he had the career, he made the money, he had the grocery stores, etc. And he wanted to really have an impact on young people. He comes here in the 1970s and he starts teaching entrepreneurship courses. This is in the 70s. All these schools, you hear about entrepreneurial programs, started off in the late 90s, early 2000s, et cetera, and say that they had the first programs in the country. Dunn had it back in the 1970s. And here was this guy who was like, hey, kids, okay, jumping in the car, taking the kids down, grab stuff at the wholesale place. And one of these kids, really was asking questions, really understood that there was an opportunity here to build a relationship with someone and understanding that they had knowledge. And so would ask questions like, okay, why wholesale? Oh, you mean I could sell things at a profit? And where would I get seed money? And started borrowing money, right? Paid it back, interest, learning all of the skills of starting a store, and started a store outside of his dorm room, a store that became so lucrative that he ended up having to learn another lesson, a lesson of nationalization. And the school took over his store and continued to have him work and share profits. This student went on to become a phenomenal entrepreneur, inventing the whiteboard, several other companies, and you'll hear about him a little later. But this past year, and through these years, entrepreneurship programs have expanded, have grown, have become more and more robust, and still there's a demand. And this former student, now alum, now a board member, really moved to honor his teacher, who was Robert W. Jurgensen, decided to really make a substantial gift to expand this program into a full-on, almost like a major, right? Real way to focus at the school for students that want to do a deep dive, give every student the opportunity to take courses in entrepreneurship, to understand how to market themselves, to really learn these skills. And so with that gift, we have the expansion, the Robert Jurgensen Entrepreneurship Program, which is a differentiator for us as a school. And it continues to prepare students for life. Now, you're going to hear about a lot of stuff today. You're going to hear about stuff inside the house, so to speak, and also outside the house. You're going to hear about the program inside the house, all the stuff that deals with entrepreneurship, all these entrepreneurial courses. But you're also going to hear about courses outside. One of the courses is going to be a course that's on philosophy and the history of power and status. And I'm going to teach that class. And I'm going to use one of the texts I'm going to use is status anxiety. And it's going to be another opportunity for students who may not be inclined to be like, I want to, I might be a humanities kid, or I might be in a STEM kid, but there are going to be classes in these arenas as well that speak to entrepreneurship. So we've shifted our schedule. We added extra periods. We went to a trimester system in order for students to have more elective opportunities, take full advantage of this program. I'll stop there. I'm excited, and I appreciate all of you for being on.
Thank you very much, Cal. For those who just joined us, that was Cal Balvin, our head of school here at Dunn. Before we move on to the next portion of the program, two things. I wanted to let you know, if you do have any questions, please access the Q&A portion. It's not the chat necessarily, but it's labeled Q&A. Load your questions up as we go. And if there's a point in time where I can pop in on our panelists and ask them a question, I definitely will. We will also have a Q&A session at the very end. But please do use the Q&A portion to ask your questions throughout. Also wanted to welcome Ethan Aday as a panelist. Ethan is a student, and he's currently in like an upper class of the entrepreneurship program currently. So he can talk about his experience. But for now, I'm going to throw it over to Alex Westcott. Alex Westcott is an instructor in the entrepreneurship program, and he's going to kick off the presentation. Alex, whenever you are ready.
Thank you very much, JD. So first of all, we are so excited to welcome you all, and we are so excited about this program and being able to share it with you. So we're going to dive right in. And at Erie Inc., in our current class, we love stories. So we're going to start out with a story. This is Peyton Fetterman. Peyton Fetterman is a current sophomore. He's also an advisee of mine. He's a really great kid. And And last year as a freshman, I was talking to him and I said, hey, you know, what are you into? What are the kinds of passions that you have? And he said, well, on my spare time, on my weekends, I actually build benches with my dad, and they're really nice. I said, oh, that sounds really great. You know, maybe you should take Erie Incorporated and you can, you know, develop your benches, maybe try to sell them around the valley. And he said, wow, that sounds like a good idea. As the spring progressed, I started looking at the numbers for this year's class, and we realized pretty quickly the demand was so high for the Erie Incorporated course that we were going to only be able to offer it to juniors and seniors. So I had to break the news to Peyton and say, I'm sorry, you're a freshman right now. You'll have plenty of time to take the course. Your junior year, I think that's not gonna happen for you. So it was upsetting to him. He understood, but because of the demand of the course, we were not able to incorporate him into the class, and it was perhaps a missed opportunity. So here's our agenda for tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about how entrepreneurship is in our DNA. Cal touched on that a little bit. We're going to talk about our existing program and also some opportunities, and then the expansion and even future expansion. So year one, we'll dive deeply, and then we'll make sure you have some opportunities to ask us some questions about that, and then we'll go the full idea for the expansion. Chad, take it away.
All right, I was the first guy that forgot to unmute. Hi, everybody. Chad Stacy, CFO, co-instructor, along with Alex Westcott. So entrepreneurship is indeed in Dunn's DNA. And in this picture, these pictures, you see Bob Jurgensen on the left and Michael Boone on the right. So Michael Boone is the generous benefactor that that told us, hey guys, how about you turn this into a real program that's better than anything else that anybody's doing? And so he's given us the seed money to pull this off, and we're so excited to help him out. But as Cal mentioned, Bob Jurgensen worked with Mike Boone. Mike Boone then went on and left Dunn, and the first invention that he made using his entrepreneurial skills was the whiteboard. So yes, a Dunn School alumni invented the whiteboard. How about, does anybody use real candles anymore? No. We all use those battery-powered flickering candles. Guess what? Mike Boone invented the battery-powered flickering candles. And then his big invention, and the one that led to this most recent gift, was he invented the men's shaving brand called Cremo. And so Mike's a very successful entrepreneur. Alex and I have been using him as a presenter in the class for years. He's kind of been a mentor to both of us. And so it's a true partnership in the expansion of this program. So Mike always tells us to build the package first. He tells us his story about walking through the grocery store. He has just sold his whiteboard business and he's looking for the next opportunity. And he goes into the shaving aisle and he sees all the sort of orange and black Gillette cans. You know it. I mean, Gillette owns the shaving aisle of the grocery store. And he's like, that's not right. He said, those cans are terrible. They look like you're going to destroy the ozone the first time you use them. He said, there's something missing here. And he said, I'm going to fill that gap. I'm going to solve that problem. So you hear us talk all the time about entrepreneurs solving problems. So he identified a need in the marketplace and he created a shaving brand called Cremo to solve that need. And before he did anything else, he built the package. And so he's encouraged us this year to focus on building the package first. So a lot of what we're talking about in our year one goals is building the package. What are we going to become? And so that's how we'll frame that. But the biggest thing for us is we need to increase the student capacity, because Alex mentioned that Peyton couldn't join our class. There were 12 kids that we had to turn away this year because we didn't have capacity. So the very first goal of the package is to increase the student capacity. So we'll show you how we're going to do that. We also need to make sure that the kids that have taken the class and succeeded this year have other opportunities to grow. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we need to systematize it. We'll show you that first slide again later, but that's such an inspirational slide for me because Alex and I started this program way off in the corner of campus in this tiny little space. And it was kind of this little silo off to the side where everybody was like, well, what are Alex and Chad and those kids doing there, you know? And then when Mike Beck, the prior head of school, said, I want to put this program in the heart of my brand new $6.5 million building, we were like, whoa. And then today, Mike Boone says, Now that beautiful building needs a more robust program. So we're super, super excited, and we need to systematize the program and grow it and expand it. So we'll tell you about that. So there's the Cremo package. I hope you all use Cremo and use it often, because as Mike succeeds, we succeed.
So we've talked a lot about how entrepreneurship is in our DNA. And when Chad and I have been building this program, it's also been through student driven. A lot of the decisions that we've made have been from demand from students. And this is Sunny McClure. She was from the class of 2010, and she also had a problem. She came to Mike Beck and said, you know what, we need a place on campus. We need a place to gather, a place where we can make it our own. And we also can, test out some things. And so she took out a loan from the school and started the first cafe on campus. It was in very little small office. It was a former office, and made all the decisions. They did some demo, they did some building up of the space, they painted, and then they sold out their inventory and were able to pay back the loan to Mike Beck really early on. So again, it became an idea of student-driven solution to a problem that existed on campus. So we've kind of taken that idea of doing some customer development and then trying to take it another step. So at first we thought, well, the cafe itself we're running our own business. But you know what? What if we helped other businesses, real businesses? And so we started reaching out to actual businesses. And what you see here is Chris Reed. And Chris Reed owns Reed's Ginger Beer. And we cold called him and said, hey, would you be willing to give our students a marketing problem to solve? And he said, you know what? Sure, let's try to figure this out. So he's like, we're not really sure who our customers are. We're wondering if maybe there's some other customer segments that we can hit. What do you think your students can do? So we took him through the process of getting out of the building, talking to customers, and trying to figure out who the customers of Reed's Ginger Beer might be. We had the students prepare a presentation. We drove down to the factory. Chris took us around the factory. Chad and I were walking around the factory with hairnets on. All the students were watching the bottling line and people working in the factory. And afterwards, he took us in, put us in this boardroom, and our students got up, put their projector on the wall, and started their presentation. About 5 minutes into the presentation, he goes, stop. And he gets up and he walks out of the room, and our students are looking at themselves like, what did we do? We thought it was going well. We thought this presentation was good. He comes back in and he brings in 3 other people. He says, this is my leadership team. This is my CFO. I want them to hear your presentation. Start over. So our students start over. They go through their presentation, and at the end of it, all of the leadership team was super impressed. Chris Reed is congratulating us. They're all giving a round of applause. We start walking out. He takes us over to this storeroom, opens up the door, and he says, go on, kids, take what you want. And there's Virgil's root beer and Reed's ginger beer, all sorts of flavors. And the kids just started grabbing stuff and putting them in the back of our Suburbans. When we returned back to campus, it was as if we won the Super Bowl. Kids were passing out ginger beers to all their friends, high-fiving each other. And the most important part was they could really see their success. They could see how much they'd grown from the beginnings of our courses that year to standing up in front of a professional and just killing it. And so that is really what we're super proud of, is when the students can really see their growth.
Thanks, Alex. I'm going to do one sort of like graduate school style slide, and then I'm going to throw it to Ethan Aday, who's a student who's going to kind of give you the real skinny on what the program's like. But this is kind of the like why and how do we do what we do. So we feel like curricular skills are in education are being replaced by 21st century skills. So the soft skills, the complex problem solving, the emotional intelligence, the reasoning, problem solving, ideation, these skills are much more important than sort of knowing the date that Columbus sailed the ocean blue, because that information is all available to us these days. And we're going to have so many different jobs in our lives that we really try to focus on passing these 21st century skills. So every project we create, we look at this document and we say, how are we introducing these skills? We wrap it up in the framework of problem solutions based projects. And then we surround the kids. We kind of put a big hug around them. We say, we're going to challenge you. There's going to be a lot of press, a lot of rigor, but we're going to care and support for you the whole time, because kids will run through a brick wall for you if they know that you love them. And we certainly do love them. So this is the how and the why. And sort of the big COVID moment that we had, if you click one more time, Alex, was when we discovered that students really excel in these high stakes assessments. And when I say high stakes assessments, you should be thinking anything but a test, anything but a quiz, because we don't do any of that. What we do is we go down to CEOs and we present to them. And so that high stakes assessment that Alex just described, where the kids presented to Chris Reed's, really has the kids perform. It's amazing what happens. We'll always do a dress rehearsal before the assessment, a couple days before. And Alex and I are always looking at each other and we're like, these kids are not ready. Like they are going to blow it. They're going to embarrass us. And then we get down there for the event and they are just smoking on fire. So the high stakes assessment are the big tool. And I think I'm going to throw it to Ethan Aday next, who we threw into the fire his freshman year when we took him down to Dimensional and had him present. Do you want to talk a little bit, Ethan, about that?
Yeah, so this is my second year taking the class, and when I first took it as a freshman, I was the only freshman in the class, and we had a very real high stakes assignment. We had to pitch a stock to a trading firm in Santa Monica. So, I mean, it's really something to try and convince a room full of professionals why you think that this stock is a good idea. And I remember at the end of the day, my stock and my presentation could have gone, or it went 1,000 times better than the dress rehearsal. And part of it is the preparation that you put in. It's really fundamental, if anything. When you are actually in the room, there's just something that clicks in your head, and being in that environment, being able to take the tour and see how this building works, how this firm works, it puts you in the right headspace, and it really puts you in the zone to give a crazy presentation. Honestly, I don't think I could replicate it if I tried. But also that year, we connected with a Dunn alumni and gave another similar presentation about what we would change to the Crystal Pier Hotel. And so, although it was online at that point in the year, it was again a really high stakes assignment, because you have an actual financial sheet, a very real hotel, and you need to make it more profitable. And so it's a very open-ended question of how are you going to do that? What steps are you going to take? And so that level of freedom and that room to really do as you please, it teaches you a lot about how businesses work and how you're going to justify to a room full of people how something on paper is going to be profitable.
Ethan, how about that spread of food at Dimensional?
They had some pretty solid food, I gotta say. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, so how we doing? Let's take a look at the scoreboard. So of course, we're a business class, right? So we measure by revenues. So we're up to the point now where we're averaging between $35,000 and $40,000 in revenues alone coming out of the Earwig Cafe every year. So, you know, and how did that happen? You see the big bump up the last couple of years. It's because we listened to our customers and we weren't open enough. And so we had the kids research and we moved to a self-serve checkout system. So now our cafe is open 24/7. So once again, practicing what we preach and reaping the benefits.
Chad,
So yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Are you going to talk a little bit about Jeff Wong?
Oh, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So then we take those, so that 38,000 in profits that we're expecting this year, what we're going to do is we're going to hand it to next year's class. And we're going to tell them, hey, you invest this money in the stock market. Let's start compounding this money. And so that's a huge component of the class. It's called the Earwig Foundation. So let's take a look at the next slide. So this is how the Earwig Foundation account has grown over time. We're up to almost 300,000. When we started, Alex mentioned Jeff Wong, another student generated idea. The student came to me in my first year at the school and said, hey, Mr. Stacy, I want to do an investing club, but I want you to provide us real money to invest. And I'm like, nice to meet you, Jeff. Okay, why don't you write something up and we'll go talk to the board. And when you give a kid an assignment like that, why don't you write something up and we'll go talk to the board? I would bet it happens once out of 100. But Jeff was one of those kids that wrote something up, came back to me, and we talked more about it. And then we went to the board and we took the Earwig Cafe money and we invested it in this stock account. So it's a huge part of the program. I would say it's a major differentiator. Many schools have some component of entrepreneurship, but the big differentiators for Dunn are the store, having a real student-run business. That's a huge differentiator. The foundation account, having a real investment account, which we have a goal to get this account to $1 million, and then we're going to fund student scholarships. And then I'd say the integration in the academic curriculum. If you research on Google, you're going to find a lot of entrepreneurship clubs, a lot of semester programs, a lot of summer programs. You're not going to find many that are integrated in the curriculum. And then the big jump that we're taking with Jurgensen is the breadth and the depth. All right, so also on the scoreboard is college placement. I know many of you care deeply about that. We also do. We've had 2 recent students go to Babson, 2 to USC Marshall, and many go to Northeastern, all very strong business and entrepreneurship programs. A 2014 graduate recently sold his first business, Rhombus Ads. We've got another very recent graduate that runs a real estate development company. And yes, all of your kids, whether you know it or not, want to be YouTube entrepreneurs. And we have one. We have one with 110,000 subscribers. So your kid can do that too.
So we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about what the program is going to look like in the first year. So we will have this, the Jurgensen's Entrepreneur Summer Program. Amanda, do you want to talk briefly about that?
Yeah, definitely. So part of our expansion program is offering a 2-week summer program this summer, rising 8th through 10th graders, and Chad Stacy will be leading that course, kind of a sampler 2-week of the year-long course that we offer. So students will take about 4.5 hours of class time, then combined with traditional summer fun, surfing, ropes course, electives. We have a day option, residential option, and it will run from July 9th to July 23rd. So if you're interested, please send me an email, summer@dunnschool.org. It's a great way to get a kind of sampler version of this program that we're going to be offering for all of our high school students.
And in typical Earwig style, Ethan Aday is going to be my co-instructor. So thank you, Ethan. So now you're into the Dunn full high school program. So you're a 9th grader, maybe a 10th grader. You're going to take Jurgensen's Toolkit. So this class is very similar to what we just described, formerly the Earwig Incorporated class. It's going to have the elements of starting your own business, investing in common stocks, and then partnering with other businesses in typically a marketing campaign. So that's what the Jurgensen's Toolkit is going to look like. This is going to be a brand new class for us. It's called Jurgensens Market. There's currently elements of Earwig Incorporated where the kids actually run the Earwig Cafe, and we don't do that as well as we could because we're so busy doing these great projects for these businesses. And so we really want to pull that and separate those parts out. So we're creating this whole section called Jurgensens Market. So the front of Jurgensens Market is the self-serve section where you've got your kind of quick serve drinks and snacks, and you have your apparel, and it's open 24/7. So what the kids do there is they have about 6 different vendors that they work with, wholesale vendors that bring in their stuff. They have to do the orders. They have to enter it in the system, so it's in the inventory system. They have to clean up. They have to change the receipt printer. You know, they have to do stuff that businesses do. They have to stock shelves. And then we have a back of house. And the back of house is an area that we're really excited to explore. Because of COVID and because of the newness of the program, we haven't really gotten it full going. But there's a $15,000 one-touch espresso machine back there. There's a convection oven. There are blenders, so we can make milkshakes and smoothies. So there's a whole sort of quick serve element that we're not really fully utilizing that will be part of Jurgensens Market as well. And we're really going to take a step up in sort of the business management by introducing QuickBooks. The kids will have their own checking account. So the Dunn School business office won't be involved at all. The kids will be doing all the income statements and balance sheets to keep the place running.
We also will get those students food handlers licenses, and one of the goals of that course is for them to walk away with a resume. So we feel that after taking that course, they could walk into a summer job and say, I've got my food handler's license. I've been working through this market at my school, and I'm going to be a really desirable candidate.
I got to tell you a funny story before we go on to the next one. So, and Ethan, you can jump in too if you remember this, but everybody's like, well, you know, how do you let students do all this stuff? Like, don't mistakes happen? Well, yes, of course mistakes happen, right? So like one time a kid ordered all these, what was the terrible drink they ordered? It was it
the tamarind flavored?
Yeah,
sodas?
yeah. Like we had like 10 cases of tamarind Jarritos in these glass bottles. And we're like, what are we going to do with this stuff? So we're having a big Super Bowl party. We always have this big blowout Super Bowl party. And the kids are like, man, we need to get rid of this tamarind because it's taking up all this room on the shelves. So they started putting it in boxes with other like random chips and other stuff that wasn't selling. They taped it up and they put like, you know, Christmas wrapping on it, and they called it the mystery box. And they said, inside this box is $75 worth of goods, and we'll sell it to you for $50. And by the end of the night, we had unloaded all of our mystery boxes, and the tamarind was off the shelves. All right, philosophy and the study of status. So Callian mentioned this earlier. Michael Boone is a big believer that just because you can get rich, just because you can amass power, doesn't mean you should, and you absolutely have to be thoughtful about it. So he really wanted a philosophy component to this program, and it just so happens that Callian is an excellent teacher and has taught a class very similar to this for years, and so he's going to bring it from Athenian here and make it part of the program. Jurgensens Pioneers. Ethan, rather than me pretending like we know exactly what this is going to be like, why don't you tell them about the business that you've started and how you think you could work on that next year?
Yeah, so my sophomore year, which was actually the only year that I wasn't able to take the class, I still wanted to stay involved, so I decided to start my own clothing brand. And it's been going pretty well. It's been just over a year now. And I see Jurgensen's Pioneers as a chance for people to find a space for them to start their own brand. Anything really. I mean, for Peyton, it could be formalizing his bench making into a real company. But what I think is really important is learning what a brand is and how it works and the pretty basic forms of marketing. It teaches you a lot about how a company actually runs. And I think Jurgensen's Pioneers is an excellent opportunity to get students to give them an environment to really do that. I mean, starting a clothing brand on my own when I was not in the class was probably one of the most awkward and challenging things that I had done before. And a lot of people question if an environment for a kid to start a company is even necessary, if it's something that people should be concerned with, or kids should be concerned with in high school. And to speak on that, there's actually, I mean, I may seem like an outlier, but there's a friend in my dorm named Eli, and he's interested in starting his own brand. And today I talked to a prospective student who's already running his own brand. And I think that the stronger connection that you have with entrepreneurship itself and creating your own company, the earlier you start that, the better it's going to be in the long run. I mean, if you look at it from a quantitative measure, just being able to put that on college applications and resumes is a huge step up, and it really shows that you are ready to lead the charge. But it is also a really good opportunity to get an understanding of managing finances, interacting with the government, you know, registering for an LLC, a trademark, a copyright. It's not exactly the easiest thing. And also getting to use the network of alumni that Dunn have. It's all a really nice environment to incubate companies, really.
So one of the things we're really proud of is that the skills that Ethan learned in the earwig ink course, which is now going to be called the Jurgensens Toolkit, we really can see those growing through as they get to the Jurgensens Pioneers. So he might pitch, well, I'm gonna already come with my team intact for the Jurgensens Pioneers. It's going to be a small group of students, and we're going to surround them with really great people and just allow them to grow and scale their company for whatever they want to, or whatever they get to by the end, which is something that we weren't really able to do in the toolkit class. We would always do okay, let's start your own startup. But time constraints would never let us get to our students actually making a minimum viable product, or MVP. And we'd always have to cut them off right as that was going to be made and say, you know what, we really got to move on. We really want to get you some experience in our investing part of our class, or we have to start working with this business. And so we never really got to that MVP. This is where we see those students being able to take their MVPs and iterate on them, pivot if necessary, and make many, many iterations of that company or of that product.
Alex, can I jump in here for a quick sec? Because we got a really fun question. I'm assuming it's tongue in cheek, and Cal said he wants to answer it. But Adrian Grant asked, is Ethan really a 35-year-old disguised as a high school student? His level of sophistication.
He's like the LeBron James of entrepreneurship. You got to check his birth certificate. But, hey, who knows?
Well, like LeBron James, he is already very efficient, effective, and talented at a very young age. So thank you, Ethan, for joining and sharing your experiences.
And Ethan, I think I need you to take this opportunity to write in the chat the name of your clothing brand so everybody can get their hands on some Quasar material.
Yes.
There we go. All right, so let's just pause here for a bit, because this kind of frames next year, and I know many of you are parents that are students that are going to be coming next year. So now's a good time if you have any questions about like what your kid is able to take, how long these classes will last, who will be teaching them, all that kind of stuff. If you want to get down into those details, we're happy to take those questions at this time. All right, you want to just keep rolling then?
Sure.
Yeah, if anyone wants to use the Q&A, please do. And then as the questions come up, I'll relay them to the team.
All right.
So this is our plan for the first year, but we really want to make sure that we are able to offer even more than that. And one of the things that we didn't mention was that the market class is intended to be a trimester course. So we will have 3 different groups of students taking over the cafe throughout that time. The Jurgensens Toolkit is intended to be a full year course, as well as the Jurgensens Pioneers. So here are some of the other options that we have down the pipeline.
So since these aren't coming next year, they're less fully developed. So I'll just start with that. So we don't have names. We're kind of talking more with what we think will be in these classes, but we know that one of the classes is going to be a deep dive into entrepreneurship and product design development. So we have a very good process for teaching kids how to start a business. It starts with that problem solutions scenario. What is your customer pain? What is your customer problem? And how do I, as an entrepreneur, solve it? And we take them through that process really, really well. And then we stop because we're a small class and we have time constraints. So we've never gotten to the point where we get them to actually design their own products. So we think of this as getting it to the minimum viable product and perhaps even that first dollar of revenue. So it's really doing the deep dive and product design, development, and revenue.
Before we pop into the next class here, we have a couple questions. I want to get them through. CJ Bigelow asks, what was the name of the book Cal will be using in his class?
So I want to use a few things. I mean, this book, Status Anxiety by Alain de Botton, is one that I'll use. It's really nice because it talks about history of how status and associated with wealth or privilege how it really problematizes what people think about it, right? So for example, taking a look at what people might think in relationship to, oh yes, the community gets money, will it automatically mean status comes? No, not necessarily. And how social media ultimately, and you can start to see how social media impacts our psychology. And so it's a really interesting text. So I will use this text, but I also want to introduce students to the idea of power in and of itself. We use that term all the time, but we don't really realize it. So there'll be a little bit of Foucault, there'll be a little bit of Gramsci and Bourdieu, like the idea of power in a system, visible power versus hidden power versus invisible power. What does it look like? And what role in terms of invisible power does status and money and wealth really have? And why do we give it power in a way, shape, or form? And how can we, empower ourselves in a system that has these mechanisms at play? And so we'll do some practical things. I've done a course like this, and it's project-based, research-based. So students will learn some theory, learn some history, and then go into a research project that really will try to look at a problem and approach it, using the same sort of, arc that we learn in our entrepreneurial courses, that design arc, to try to come to a, positive hypothesis and positive solution. And so all of that related to the idea of status, wealth, and power. And so it'll be a fun class. We taught in the trimester system, and it'll be the first humanities classes. And so I'm actually really excited to offer a humanities class that touches on the entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Thanks, Cal. One more. This is probably for you, Chad. Lori Deloxe asks, how would next year's seniors participate if they haven't yet?
Yeah, so Lori, I would say next year's seniors should take the toolkit. The toolkit gives your senior a flavor of all of this. So basically the toolkit is everything that we think we do really well. And then the other classes are deeper dives into elements of the toolkit. So I would want to see them in the toolkit. If they have extra room in their schedule, they could do both the toolkit and the market. As Alex mentioned, the market is going to be a trimester course. So we'll have some kids that maybe want to take it the full year, but some kids that maybe just want to take it for one trimester. And I think it'll be a very rich program, even if just taken for one trimester.
And Danica should take my class too. So
that's true.
Yeah.
We'll also talk about some other classes that are upcoming that are being currently designed by faculty members that might live sort of outside of this house, and we'll touch on that a little bit later.
I actually had one more thing to add about next year's seniors participating. So one thing that happened to me this year, during one of our high stakes projects where we had to present to a company with new marketing plans, I was in a 4-person group and all of my other group members got COVID the week of our presentation. And so again, Eli comes in and we spent 3 hours just working on the presentation on a random study hall night. And he actually went to present with me despite not being in the class. So I think that the more individual entrepreneurship there is on campus, especially with students in the Pioneers program, but really anywhere, participation and can be pretty universal, and some people really just have a knack for it. And so when it comes to things like marketing or really just a general direction for a company, a lot of people can provide assistance even though they might not directly be in a class.
Yes,
right.
That's a good segue to the second class that we're planning for the the future, and that's a marketing focused class. So I'm sure you all realize how much your kids are being marketed to every moment of every day. And so kids really understand marketing. A lot of the partnerships that we've done with outside businesses have been around social media marketing. It's something they do really well. The kids do really well, and adults that are running their businesses don't understand nearly as well. So they're yearning for help in this area. We have a really funny story about a partnership that we did with a company that imports Philippine snacks from the Philippines. It's called salted egg fish skins, and it is literally fried salmon skins that is breaded and salted. And we dropped these down on the table and we said to the kids, guess what? This is your project. And they said, you're kidding me. We have to sell salted egg fish skins? And we said, yes, you have to sell salted egg fish skins. So 3 weeks later, they're presenting these amazing presentations. One group changed the name to Sea Bacon. You know, another group spent some time talking about, should it be cat food? So that's the level of creativity that we allow these kids to have. And the partner in that program, the CEO of the company, was so thrilled with their work that he came down and he brought a bunch of steaks and he had a cookout for the kids. So that's what the marketing class is going to be all about. And then our final idea is investing in philanthropy. And I discussed a little bit about the ERIG Foundation and the investing component that we already do. So this is going to be the deep dive in that area. We think philanthropy is a natural fit with this program because just as entrepreneurs are solving problems profitably, philanthropists are solving problems that do not have a profit motive. So when Bill Gates is providing vaccines to third world countries, he's solving a societal problem, but there's no profit motive. So philanthropy is a very good tie to this program and this project. Alex, do you want to talk a bit about the Kiva Project, or maybe Ethan, a bit about the Kiva Project as a way to describe that?
Sure, I'll start off and then Ethan can jump in and talk a little bit more about it. But you know, we have these couple of students. There's 4 of them right now who are really passionate about entrepreneurship, and they'd already taken the ERIG Incorporated class, which is essentially going to be the toolkit. And we still wanted to be able to provide them with opportunity. So we offered them a level we call 2.0 for the class, and they're TAs for us. But in our investing section, where we teach them how to invest in the stock market, it felt as if it would be a little bit too much repeat if we were just to give them, you know, okay, go pitch another idea for a stock that we should buy. So we actually decided to dive into a little bit of philanthropy. So we've done it through this organization called kiva.org. And it's an organization where you can select people to micro loan to. In this case, our students had to go out and research and find people on this organization in this website to actually give real money to, that over the course of time, depending on the person, will repay us back. So they are high school students who are about to be philanthropists in real life. Ethan, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we always, whenever we're analyzing a company, we use something called the business model canvas, where we basically do deep dives into every part of how the company should work and different streams of revenue and marketing and pretty much everything you can. And for this, we use something called a social business model canvas. And I think it's a really interesting take because I honestly can't think of any classes or just any high schoolers in general.
Oh, you're on mute, Ethan.
Did we lose
You're
that
back.
completely?
Yes, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah. So I think I was left off. I really can't think of any classes or any high schoolers in general that are thinking about philanthropy at this point in time. And it's really an essential part of the capitalist nature of America to give back whenever you've made it. So looking at philanthropy through this lens, and the assessment for this assignment being not a test or a presentation, but actually a podcast, really forces you to get to know who you want to give to and really try to convince someone why they should receive any help, really.
Nicely done, Ethan. Thank you. So we touched on a little bit how, you know, we're always trying to make student-driven decisions. And so we're actually doing that again in another way. We're trying to expand innovation around the campus and make it so that it's not just inside the house at the Jurgensen program, but instead that it becomes the culture around all of Dunn School. So the administration has decided to give us innovation grants. So teachers can now pitch ideas for innovative classes. And if selected, we'll begin to teach those during the trimesters that we see. We're going to expand the schedule. And what you see in front of you is a session that was led by a consultant named Will Grant. And he came in with the students and he had them developing courses. They were coming up with courses that they were interested in. We had people that were interested in doing some courses in engineering. We had some in some psychology courses, some women's health courses, even some in technology. And so teachers right now are going out and they're about to pitch their own ideas for these courses. And if selected, we will offer them in addition to the first year program of the Jurgensen program. So some of the ones that we've got some courses that I know are going to be pitched that have to do with upcycling of glass, potentially looking at local connections there. Some that might even do some investigating into NFTs and how blockchain works, and things that our students know a whole lot more than maybe even the teachers do. So that's kind of a really exciting possible next step for the school. So here we have Peyton again. We've gone through this process. We now are going to be able to expand. If Peyton was coming in as a freshman, we would have been able to accommodate him and have him in our first level, the Jurgensens Toolkit, and we would have solved Peyton's problem. So here's a little glimpse of one of his benches. I forgot to mention that when as his advisor, I actually made him create a pitch for me. And I told him, I said, you know what, you got to come back to me. You got to tell me about your business. You got to give yourself a logo and sell me on these benches. And he came back and he pitched me on the benches, and I actually bought one of them. So we're hoping that Peyton will take the course next year. I've already talked to him about it, and that we will then have solved his problem. Here's some of the details about the Summer Academy, and then we can answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, throwing over to Amanda Milholland. Amanda, if you'd like to talk about the summer.
Yeah. I think, I mentioned those are kind of the details there. So rising 8th through 10th graders. I know we have some on the call that are joining us this summer. So we're excited to have you, and feel free to share with families or friends that may be interested in this summer. And then, yeah, I think like JD said, we can get to Q&A if there's any other questions, and then we'll wrap up the evening.
Yeah, we'll pause for questions for a moment. There aren't any out there now. But I would like to thank all of you panelists who joined us tonight. Amanda, of course, Chad, Alex, and then especially Ethan, the star of the show. You're such an impressive entrepreneur and young man. Thank you for being with us. And thank you to Cal, who unfortunately had to step away here at the end. But thank you to everyone, all the attendees who have hung out and joined us tonight. We hope you're excited about the program as we are, and appreciate your attention and joining us and learning all about this exciting program. We do have one question that came in. Mark Vernon asks, can freshmen take the course?
Absolutely. We envision that sort of being the entry level, either the Summer Academy or the Toolkit course. And like I said, we are going to be expanding our schedule to 8 classes. So students will be able to take a bunch of different electives, and a freshman could take the Toolkit, which is the year-long course, and maybe even take a trimester of the market and really be enveloped in the entrepreneurship program.
Awesome, thank you, Alex. Any more questions? It looks like we've answered everybody's inquiries. So thank you very much again, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to the panelists. Appreciate the great information. If you have any further questions, specifically regarding summer, you can contact Amanda at summer@dunschool.org. If you have any questions about this presentation, you can contact me at communications@dunschool.org. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.